You are listening to Small Business Straight Talk with your host, Amber De La Garza. Amber is a sought-after coach, trainer, speaker, and writer who gives small business owners the straight talk on productivity, time management, business systems, leading your teams, strategic decision-making, and mindset. No BS, fluff, or overused jargon. Just actionable strategies to get results and succeed in business. And here is your host, Amber De La Garza, the productivity specialist.
Welcome, and thank you for listening to the Small Business Straight Talk podcast. Today is episode 361, Implementing Digital Operations for Business Growth with Michael Greenberg. If you're a small business owner who wants to learn effective business strategies, improve time management, and elevate productivity to maximize profits, reduce stress, and make time for what matters most, then you're in the right place, and I'm so glad you've joined me. I'm looking forward to bringing this conversation and interview to you that you get to meet our guest, Michael Greenberg. Michael is the founder and CEO of the Third Brain Digital Operations and Automation, a consultancy that helps businesses ranging from $2 million to $100 million in revenue achieve explosive growth through cutting-edge digital operations, automation, and AI implementation. With a decade of experience and a proven track record of success across industries, Michael has become the go-to expert for entrepreneurs looking to optimize their workflows, teams, and tools. Michael's expertise in AI is particularly noteworthy as he has developed innovative solutions for integrating AI into businesses' workflows, from automating content creation to building sophisticated logic routers for project management. Beyond his work at Third Brain Automation, Michael is a seasoned entrepreneur with an impressive achievements, including raising $1.5 million for a startup and successfully exiting a podcast production agency. Before we jump into our conversation with Michael, I do want to let you know that we are referencing a framework that he and I are able to see because this interview was actually recorded a couple months ago and was slated to be a video interview. We are not publishing this as a video interview at this time, and that framework can be accessed and viewed over at the show notes on my website, amberdelagarza.com/361. The framework is a great diagram that is leading our conversation, but I am confident that you will be able to follow along listening to this podcast and get tons of valuable information. Speaking of video interviews, well, the cat is out of the bag. We are slated to start video interviews that you can find on YouTube in 2025. We are not quite there yet because I have decided that I am going to be actually overhauling our entire podcasting process to include AI is often in the process is possible for leverage, efficiency, use of technology to maximize my team's skill sets. And because we're doing that, we are putting pause on sending the video interviews out to the world, working on the processes, and we will roll out both. One, you will not see. It's all behind the scenes in our processes. And the second is going to be these video interviews in 2025. So now you know. Before we dive in, again, one more quick announcement. If you have not already done so, I want to invite you to take my quick 3-minute Next Level Business Owner quiz. In 3 minutes, you can take a quiz to find out what is most holding you back from taking your business to the next level. After you find out what is most holding you back, you will get a curated playlist of podcast episodes from the Small Business Straight Talk podcast that address those specific challenges. What is more productive than knowing exactly what content to consume, and in that content has strategies and methods that you can apply to your business to solve those solutions immediately? Head on over to amberdelagarza.com/quiz. Again, that's amberdelagarza.com/quiz. And now, let's get to the straight talk. Hi, Michael. Welcome to Small Business Straight Talk. How are you?
Hey, Amber. I am doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing really good. We had a great pre-chat, which gets the jitters out. I was really excited about this topic. I shared with you in the pre-chat that I keep a short list of topics that I want to make sure that I bring to my audience, and AI is at the top. So I'm really looking forward to being able to dive into that. Before we do, though, Michael, can you share with us a little bit about yourself that we didn't get to learn in the official bio?
Oh, yeah. So I am an avid bread baker. I've been baking with sourdough for about 15 years now.
Oh my gosh, before your time. Yeah, like you were doing this before it was the rage.
I got to make sure I get that out there that I am not a new sourdough bro.
Yeah.
And Chat GPT-o1, the newest reasoning model,
Mhm.
is the first one that is actually useful to me as a baker in recipe development. It
Okay.
understands bread making pretty darn well.
Okay, that is actually good intel for me. So I have that on my short list of next hobbies. And I was not old school 15 years ago. It's because I keep seeing it. And I'm gluten free. I've been gluten free for 15 years and
Oh,
I've
yeah.
been working on healing my gut, and I can eat sourdough, but it has to be like good quality sourdough that my body can, digest well. So I was like, I should just be making my own bread. And so
Oh, yeah.
I'm the girl that's just watching the videos right now, but it's a short list of taking it up as a hobby. So I'll have to tap into your skill set and expertise soon.
Oh, there's one book you need. It's specifically on sourdough rise,
Okay.
and that is going to be the book because rye has a much lower gluten content naturally compared to traditional wheat.
Yeah.
And so a sourdough rye is ultra digestible for somebody who's gluten intolerant.
Okay. We're going to get it. That's awesome. So my baby steps to this, because I live in the city and I want to retire on a farm, but I'm not really a farm girl, is like I make all my own nut milks already. Like I'm really,
Awesome.
yeah. And I want to garden outside, but I live in Vegas. So I built like a full on, garden. I have like 150 house plants, and I couldn't even
Oh,
keep one
wow.
alive 2 years ago. So I like to find hobbies that like I get to learn, but also challenge things that I believe I can or can't do. So this is the list: outdoor garden next, nut milks. That was easy. Sourdoughs next after that.
Excellent. I'm actually trying to save a couple of fruit trees in my backyard right now.
Okay.
I just moved into this place and found out I have a couple of fruiting pawpaw trees in the backyard. And
Nice.
I got to taste one fruit. I was like, I gotta get more of this.
Yeah, that's where I'm starting. I actually have mine coming in. I have a lemon, a lime, and an avocado tree coming in, because that is like our groceries every single week. I buy those three things, and I was like, this is going to save a lot of money if I can keep these trees alive. But okay, wow, we are totally sidetracked. Let's jump into, that was a great sidetrack though, but let's jump into AI. And I don't think that's where we're going to end up starting. So why don't you share with us a little bit about why am I even talking to you about AI? And maybe that's going to naturally go into, if you're offering this as a service, what have you learned about business owners and AI over the
Yeah,
years?
absolutely. So I've been playing the great game of business for about a decade now.
Mm-hmm.
And this is my fifth business. I've launched a few before. I sold one, and I like to say it was a single, made enough that I could take a step back, figure out what could do, not enough to retire.
Mm.
After I sold that business, I looked back at sort of where I went wrong, and I realized that the combination of technology change and people change and process change would just add up to building operational debt. And I come from a product background building technology. And so we have this concept of tech debt where you write bad code and the
Uh-huh.
bad code slows down your ability to build the product over time. But it's
Okay.
like drag, it's not a blocker that comes up at any one time.
Right. So it's
The
not
same,
obvious. It's just happening slowly over time.
exactly. And the
Mm-hmm.
same thing happens in operations. inside of
Okay.
business operations.
I'm
So
writing this down. This is good. Okay. I've never heard that phrase, operational drag.
thanks. So I went to work now, this is about 4 or 5 years ago. I went to work for an entrepreneur who had been literally like a million times more successful than I had.
Mm,
Um, he was building $1 billion business, still on that path, and made hundreds of millions himself. I went to work with him in operations and in go to market operations for his venture studio. We did some marketing, we did some internal sort of just business process stuff. And then ChatGPT came out.
mm.
Everything clicked. It was operations, combining the people, the process, the technology, using the AI, using the automation, putting together everything that I had sort of straddled in my career between that technology and that operational process as an entrepreneur, and putting it into a unified system so that instead of building that operational drag and debt, you built leverage and acceleration by putting people and processes together that could 50 or 100x.
So it wasn't about replacing. I didn't hear the word replace. You kept highlighting together. So can you
Yeah.
go a little bit deeper into how you envisioned this all coming together?
Oh, absolutely. So we've actually put together a bit of a framework to describe that.
Of
Um,
course. I love frameworks. You want to share it?
oh, yeah. So let me see. Can you all see my screen?
Yes.
So we call this the 5 levels of digital operations. And you'll notice there's 6 levels to the pyramid.
Mm-hmm.
That's because level 0 down at the very bottom is analog.
Mm.
We have a lot of clients who have businesses that are 20, 30, 50 years old. Every quarter, we're taking somebody from carbon copies and putting them into ClickUp or Airtable or JotForm. And that step is getting them from analog to digital.
Okay. And you mean like literally paper, like,
Oh, I mean, like a literal carbon copy, 2, 3 sheets of paper together. They write on
oh
it.
my
And
gosh.
then normally we build a little AI tool that lets them take photos with their phone of the carbon copies and upload them all. And
Mm-hmm.
so that operates as like, okay, you don't have to stop doing the process. You
Yeah.
just take the photo and it uploads, and that creates like a little form submission for the
Oh
team.
my goodness. Okay, so like carbon copies, I used to write real estate contracts in the early 2000s on carbon copy. I know my clients love paper now, but I haven't seen an actual carbon copy in a long time. So that this is probably a little mind blowing when they're talking to you about AI, and you're like, yeah, let's take the leap from carbon copy to AI.
Yeah. And
Mm-hmm.
that's like, we just did that with a client this year.
Mm.
Um, they install like different kinds of blinds and shutters
Yeah.
at homes, and 40-year-old company. They would make them all at their factory. They'd go to clients, they'd go out there, they'd take all the measurements, write a carbon copy quote, and submit it. And
Yes.
so we created that little machine, and it would take a photo of their quote
Okay.
and it would upload it to an Airtable based CRM. And then
Mm-hmm.
that would automate sending the proposal and the quote and the contract to the client. And so we took the start was the exact same, and we just replaced the back end of the process.
Okay. So I actually have quite a few clients that have window covering companies, surprisingly enough, and they use
Awesome.
Airtable, but they have not bridged the gap between with eliminating the double entry from, gathering the measurements, gathering all the details, and then not having to manually enter it into Airtable. So you guys
Yeah.
created this, or you're saying there was AI already
So
available to bridge that
this
gap?
is this is sort of an off-the-shelf use case of existing AI.
Okay.
So most AI can read an image fairly well, but you have to use specific models. You've got to use the right prompt. You've got to make
Mhm.
sure you have a double checking system.
Yeah.
There's like a sort of a little a widget that we've put together that plugs into any company's system.
Yeah,
for that.
even in this example, the double checking system, those measurements, like if it's a 4 looks like a 9, that's a very expensive error when you don't find out till months later and you're installing in the client's home and nothing fits.
That's actually what led us to build this for our client. Was a change order was not recorded properly.
Mm.
The client then refused delivery of a $50,000 order, and they had to eat it because they didn't have a change order signed and it wasn't tracked. So they couldn't go like, hey, this is what you ordered. No, it was, it was not what was on the PO.
Yeah. All right. Okay. So that took them from level 0 to level 1 in that example, correct?
So that actually walks through a few levels.
Oh,
So
okay.
level 1 is getting them into Airtable.
You want to share a little bit about what Airtable is for our listeners?
Yeah. So Airtable is like Excel on steroids in the cloud. It's really designed to be a database for your company that's not as complex as having your own servers.
Yeah. And so it's highly customized.
Super customized for
which is
any
the
specific
pro and the
use case.
con, right? For a small business owner that's not an expert in Airtable, getting help and being able to customize it and set it up in the way that you want to view your data or enter and input the data is really important with Airtable.
Absolutely. And I'm using Airtable because that's this specific client.
Yeah.
But we could use a Notion or a ClickUp or a Monday or an Asana and have the exact same way.
Okay.
I think it really depends. If your company already has something, you stick with that until you can't anymore. And if you don't have something, then we can choose a tool best suited for your particular workflow.
Michael, we literally pre-chatted for 3 minutes before this, and we were already like in sync on so many things. And I've told my audience once, I've told them 100 times, do not jump ship. Maximize all the features, all the benefits, because there's such a cost to jumping ship to a new product and thinking all my problems are going to be solved over there because my friend has it and because I keep hearing about it. So I love that you said, stay where you're at, maximize that return. And if it's still not working for you, then look at other options.
Thanks. That's, rule number 1 and 2 that we try to teach every one of our team members is if there's an off-the-shelf solution, use that. We don't want to be building custom software for clients if we can avoid it.
Yeah.
And if it already exists in a tool they have, there's no point in buying a new one.
Yeah, absolutely. So do you help clients actually set up the Monday, Asana, ClickUp?
Absolutely.
Okay. We'll get into that. I think that's a whole nother model I saw on your website, so I don't want to off track us, but let's keep going up the levels and then we'll circle back on, how do you help clients through these levels?
Yeah. So once you've got your data in the cloud, you have to make sure you choose a tool and a set of technology that can actually talk with each other. Because a lot of times we'll have a client, I chose this new tool that my son recommended. It's fantastic. It does everything I could want, but I can't get the data from here to here.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that tool's only been around for a year. It has no API. It has no Zapier integration. It has no Make integration. We can't get data out of that tool. That leaves us stuck at level 1. But if we want to get to level 2, we need to make sure all of our tools can talk with each other, and we have specific integration technology picked out, be it a Zapier, an automating tool, or be it we have a dev on our team and they're going to maintain a bunch of little automations. Making that choice and knowing, okay, we can get to an integratable cloud system. Everything can talk with each other.
So you said that so well, and I do it, but I didn't say it as well. So if I'm looking at a new text, something to add to my tech stack, I'm always going to Zapier. Okay, is there already, because sometimes they even get in there and they're beta, and I've had issues with like the beta integration through Zapier. But yeah, I'm always checking to make sure that what I'm looking at is already supported, because I pay a pretty penny to Zapier to make sure my tech stack talks to each other. And it'd be even more expensive trying to add something in that's not supported.
And that causes a lot of pain for companies. When we talk about operational debt, that's when we end up in a situation where, oh, your CRM cannot talk to anything else.
Mm-hmm.
We might have to change your CRM.
Right.
That's not a conversation I ever want to have.
Yeah, or they've normalized doing manual data entry, duplication. And I use the word normalized because then it's no longer questioned. And to me, that's the biggest enemy with operational, which, I mean, you're saying debt and drag, right? Use those. I'm not sure if you use both of those words. But is the mindset of like, you stop questioning things like this. And to me, it's like, okay, there may have not been a solution when you first put it together, but don't stop looking for a much better solution, a more effective and efficient solution.
Yeah. And I think key to note at level 2, we start to see a lot of companies not have their processes documented or ordered enough that they're actually able to like know what they need the software to be able to send, what kinds of data.
Right. Because they don't know what information is needed by each person on the team for them to do their job.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
And so we talk about mapping customer journeys a lot in like marketing.
Mm-hmm.
And I like to talk about mapping data journeys the same way, where we've got to follow that contact record or that quote from person to role all the way through so we can understand what needs to talk where.
Yes. Before I spoke over you, I apologize. I wanted to say I want to sit in SOPs for a second, but I want to just speak to what you just said. So we're talking early 2000s. It's the beginning of my career. This is when I went to the corporate side, like operations of real estate, when I realized I hated selling real estate after many, many years invested in a college degree. But my love was operations. And I asked to go to the operations side and to give me an opportunity to work over there. And when I did, I called it a day in the life of the transaction. And I literally, like a dork and young and naive, I would take this manila folder and I would walk into each department and I would say, how does the real estate transaction affect your department? Like, what is it that is happening when you touch this transaction? Because you got to imagine there's like this whole compliance back end side to a real estate broker.
Oh, yeah. Like my dad's a real estate broker of 40 years. I've helped him automate a good bit. I'm intimately familiar with the process.
Yeah, and there's like all these parts. And so I actually used it as a visual trying to talk to each department, because what happens is when you get bigger, each department's like, no, it's my lane, it's my department, stay out of it. And I'm like, but your department affects my department or the next department. And so I would use it as a day in life of the transaction and just start asking questions. Like just getting curious like a 3-year-old and trying to get questions answered to streamline and create efficiency. So I love that you use that example. And so how do you recommend, not getting a manila folder out, but how do you recommend your clients to figure out that customer journey or to figure out the transactional journey and how it touches each area of their business?
Oh, yeah. I mean, the process hasn't changed that much, I'll be honest.
Okay.
We sit down with everyone in any role that touches it, or in the management is generally where we start. And we ask, okay, what happens here? Walk us through step by step by step. And then, and this is, now we're starting to touch into level 3. Our goal is to build a flow chart and a checklist for every process and system in the business. Because if you have flow charts and checklists, you can map out most things detailed enough that you can give them to an AI or give them to a human for training.
Yeah. So before I started my company that I have now, where I specialize with business owners, I actually would go to corporations and they would hire me to do consulting, not coaching, which is what I do now. And I would sit down with each employee and I would ask them, what do they do? What's a day in the life? And really all like literally like curious like a little kid. And you gotta have a certain personality because people are already quite defensive about this is my work. If you're asking me questions, you're trying to, get me out of a job. And so you really have to like explain to them that this is all about actually making their job easier and more efficient. And, we got a common goal here.
Yeah.
And there was so many times that I would ask questions and I would say, and why do you produce that report weekly? Or why do you, produce that report daily? And I would get answers because I always have, because the person before me did it. I don't know, because all these people I send it to are asking for it, right? You get those big email chains where there's like 10, leadership on it. And then I would go sit with the leadership and I would have these notes and I would say, okay, so how valuable is this report that's being generated every day? And how valuable is this? Yeah. And they're like, yeah, I delete that every day. Yeah. Actually, I don't use that. I use one of them. And then now you would go backwards and now you go up and then you go backwards and you're like, now all of this is just bloat. And it really came down to everyone stopped asking, why do I do X, Y, and Z?
Yep.
Yeah.
That's for anyone who thinks their business is immune to this, I can guarantee this is your business too.
Yeah. Have you found, I call it like Frankenstein, right? In best of intentions, you get these processes and then you add another process because you want to make something better over here and then another one and you add tech. But there's no like way that they're going back and auditing and taking the duct tape off and saying, oh, we added this technology, therefore these steps over here aren't needed anymore. And so you get this like bloat and you get inefficiencies, even though they were really trying to make things better. That's why they kept changing things.
Oh, yeah. And that 9 out of 10 times, that happens because nobody updates the like process documentation for who gets trained on, like that, whatever people get trained on, nobody updates that. And so they're like, oh, well, here's the process. But actually, we switched softwares 2 years ago, and now you do it this way. And yeah, that's dime a dozen. I'd say that. That's why it's so hard for us to get to level 3, is because even if you have all the technology set up, we've got to get your business processes to the same level of documentation, or vice versa.
And when you spoke about SOPs and documentation, you said checklists and workflows. Is that where you start first before like the robust, detailed SOPs, or is that where you think is most valuable to have those two things?
Yeah, I think the flow chart and the checklist are the two most valuable in my experience. And it might be multiple checklists depending on like the way the flow chart ends up being shaped. But all processes pretty much boil down to loops or triangles in flowcharts. Some of them are lines, but the vast majority are triangles or loops because a triangle is a branching decision tree and a loop is any sort of iterative process.
Okay.
And so like most of them fall into those shapes. And so it becomes very easy for us to identify where inefficiencies or Frankenstein effects happen when we know, oh, this process is the wrong shape for this business or for what it should be based on what we're trying to achieve.
Interesting. I love that.
And so that gives us sort of a baseline to figure it out. Because that detailed SOP, step by step, we make those by recording a video of somebody doing the process, and then we use that video to generate the final detailed SOP.
Okay. So in my experience too, I have found checklists and flowcharts to be most beneficial because they're the ones that are used. So outside of initial training, I think that the detailed document of how to do this or a video, depending on how the person wants to consume that information, is really beneficial for training someone new or cross-training, etc. But it is not going to be the thing that gets used in the trenches, day to day. Nobody has time for that.
Exactly. They need cheat sheets.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so is this something I'm assuming your company helps with too, is coming in and we're talking in the trenches of all the checklists, questioning and asking everybody. This is like my initial dream job, by the way. I didn't even know you exist. This is what I initially thought my company was going to be before I stumbled onto productivity and time management. So this is
That's
very interesting to me. So you
so
go
I
into
think
the trenches with the team.
yeah. The dirty word for us that we don't like to say, but like fundamentally this is digital transformation.
Yeah.
But we know that we're getting everyone to level 3, which is a unified data layer. So we know all the processes, we have the flow charts, and we have everything connected. So there's no more copy pastes.
Okay.
And that means we can build a dashboard that tells us anything we want because we know where all the data is and we know how to put it together.
Mm-hmm.
Our business is 80% about getting people to level 3 because level 3 is when we can do AI. It's when we can do anything else.
Okay.
But we need to
Can
get
you
there
share your
first.
graphic again to get us to the
Oh,
next
yeah.
level? So, because I'm really visual too. I want to see.
Yeah, absolutely. I got it right here.
All right.
So
So
level
getting to level 3,
3.
automation workflow with humans in the loop.
Oh,
Perfect.
no, that is level 4. This is
Oh,
good
okay.
feedback for me. I need to make these arrows easier to read. We got to add colors to them. No, we'll color code the arrows to match the levels. That'll make it easier to read.
Awesome.
But level 3 is way down here, a
There we go.
unified data layer.
Okay. Cool.
And so what that means is we have flowcharts, we have checklists, and we have done all of the basic data automation
Yeah.
to integrate all of our tools. And that allows us to get to level 4 when we can actually start automating work.
Okay. And that's
Um,
using AI or other automations.
Either or. I
Okay.
think the way I think about AI is it just lets us automate a few more things. So to use an example from marketing, we build a lot of automated PR outreach workflows. So like pitching somebody as a guest on podcasts or pitching guest blogs, that sort of thing.
Yeah.
And a lot of times there's a form.
There was a
And
form when you applied.
and right now we have to have a human fill out that form.
Right.
And that human has a little chatbot that knows everything about the guest. So they can fill out the form on behalf of the guest. But just today, not 1 hour before we recorded this, and I am dating us in the process, but I hope that's okay.
Yeah. No worries.
Anthropic released computer use with Claude via the API, which means now we can send Claude to that form and say, hey, Claude, fill out this form with this information. And then the AI can do it for us.
Okay.
And so that is an example of this was not automatable. And then AI has released a new feature that now allows it to be automatable. And so it's just expanding the edge of automation in the process.
Yeah.
But at level 4, you still need a human in the loop. And so for this, a human has to review every pitch. They have to review every show. They still have to make sure it's a good fit. And they have to do all the scheduling, all the communication. The AI just removes a lot of the copy paste work.
Yeah. Okay. Excellent. Can you give us some other examples of automation workflow with humans? Because the one you just gave is great about, this is a process in my own business, is that there's someone on my team that does pre-vetting. Then she gives me a short list, and her pre-vetting is an Excel sheet that I have asked her to go through these things. And if she ever gets to a negative, like a no, or it's not there, she doesn't go any further and ask any more questions for the person that submitted, if that makes sense. So her decision-making goes left to right on an Excel sheet. If she gets from left to right with these things I'm having her look for, it goes green and now it's shortlisted to me. And now I'm making a decision on who I have on as a guest. And so there's a lot of decision making and there's a lot of judgment, right? Because there's these things like, did I just have somebody on with AI? Did I just talk to somebody about this topic? Am I even interested personally as the host? So that still needs some automation with human in the loop. Can you give a few other examples? Because I think there's this misconception that AI is going to solve all of these issues. Like, not that they're issues, but like all of these workflows where I think decision making is still really important. Personal decision making.
Let's call back to that shutter and blind manufacturer and their installation process. So just to review, we got them all the way up, I think, to level 2 before we stopped. We took the photo and then it took all the information from the quote and it put it into Airtable. And then let's take it to level 3.
Mm-hmm.
It's going to take it from Airtable and then it's going to generate a contract based on those quote details.
Yeah.
And this is where we go from level 3 to level 4. So that particular client was a veteran artillery commander and asked us to put in a primer switch and then a fire button for the contract. So the salesperson has to manually review the contract, make sure everything's right. If they have to make a few edits because a client wants something special or they're changing the delivery date, something like that, they make those. And then they hit the primer and then they hit the fire. And when it fires, then it's going to send that quote and send that contract to the client. But the human has to review and fire.
Okay. So checks and balances.
Exactly.
That's a great example. Okay, good. All right.
Thanks.
What's next?
Well, how would we take that to level 5? Short answer, we don't right now. Going from level 4 to level 5 requires like anywhere from 500 to 5,000 like individual repetitions tracked inside of the system. So that way we have enough data to then train an AI to get more complex and do more advanced tasks in the process. For the vast majority of clients, just most businesses are at level 1 or level 2 or somewhere in between.
Mm-hmm.
Getting to level 3, you're going to see capacity increases in your business. You're going to see more cash flow because you're going to be able to collect faster and manage projects better.
Mm-hmm.
And going to level 4, you can start to see real labor gains. If you haven't been able to offload any roles globally yet and start reducing your cost of labor just by moving roles offshore, getting to level 3 allows you to do that. Getting to level 4 allows you to replace. In some cases, we have clients where they can cut a team by 90% and go from 10 people down to 1 person doing the same work. That's sort of the extreme. But the average is 20 to 30%, I think, for most of the roles we try to target.
So can you define level 5 then for me? I get it's AI-driven automation, but are you saying because if you got to level 5, the whole business is like ran without human interaction?
Yeah, so like a level 5 of the quoting and proposal process would be a human takes photos and measurements because the AI can't do that.
Okay.
Or the client takes photos and has to stand a certain way and puts up a ruler or something like that. So that way the AI can do the measurement. So some sort of, it gets the input, but then we know we have 100% certainty it's going to send the contract properly. We know that it reads everything properly every time and that it is able to identify from the photos and from like its prediction if something looks far enough off, it needs to revisit it.
Yeah.
And we know that it will use the right phrasing every time, that we've developed enough solutions that it's not going to hallucinate. And even with all that, I would still probably want to have the salesperson check it over before they sent it out. And so it just might be to the point where we just have the salesperson for like a liability check.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Um,
But also for
but
the human interaction too, right? Like,
yeah,
I just think of this like as a business, I don't want to get to a place where I'm always just interacting with AI. Like, I really do want to, as frustrating as people can be on the other end of the phone sometimes when you're working with a business,
yeah,
I actually still prefer a person versus AI. And maybe that will change as technology changes and things normalize and it's more robust. But I don't think, I mean, we're both business owners. I don't think the goal here is to get everybody out of a job with AI.
oh, I don't really believe in customer facing AI at this point. I don't think
Okay.
it's ever going to really happen for B2B, not in a big way, because if I'm paying you $5,000, $10,000 a month, I expect you to pick up the phone.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's if I'm paying you $1,000 a month, I really would like to be able to speak to a human still. And if I
Right.
have to schedule, that's okay. But if I'm paying you like $5 a month, yeah, I understand no human available.
Yeah. You know what you just said? I just want to clarify for our listeners is that if and when level 5 is accomplished, it will be first in the phase of your back end operations. The goal is not front end replacement. So if you're then looking at your team, you're going to have team members and they're going to be front end, facing. And then perhaps you can take the administrative load, the operational load off of those team members. They can provide a higher service to your client because they're not dragged down, I'm going to use your word, with operational drag because there's so much efficiency on the back end. Like it sounds like that's what the ultimate goal would be for a business owner to use AI in their business.
Precisely. I think you have put it better than I have put it myself.
Well, it's being
Thank you.
recorded. You could use it. Use it again. Go for it. Yeah. I mean,
Thanks.
that was just my own observation off of what you said. I mean, you did say it. I just wanted to just clarify it because when I came into this topic was shortlisted because I have clients that are asking me, hey, what are your thoughts about AI? How can I use AI in my business? And, while I may have said that a little bit better than you have yet, your graphic, when I saw that, I was like, oh my gosh, this is what I felt was like, hold on. I get AI is sexy. I get that that's the gold shiny object, but like, we got to get some foundations first. Like, we got to build up to get there. And then my next hesitation with AI is, I kind of a control trust issue, like how
Yeah.
do you trust that something is going to do what you want it to do in the business? And you also solve that within this system. There's checks and balances. And like, when does the human interaction have to come? And so these were all my hesitations. I don't think I'm sold on AI taking over the business, but this was really, really helpful in understanding what is the goal with AI in our small businesses.
Thanks. Yeah, I think you've got it spot on in that AI is not going to take over your business. It is probably going to reduce your labor cost.
Yeah.
It's going to give you more options in the way you do things because you're going to be able to afford more intelligence, more raw horsepower.
Yeah.
But all that doesn't matter if you don't have a good system to put it through.
Yeah. So there's going to be all these points where you can leverage AI, right? But to know where those points are, you got to have a flow chart and checklist to know where the points are to start
Yeah.
with integrating the AI.
And I would even build on that. And we've got a phrase internally: don't use a chainsaw if you can't swing an axe.
Mm,
And if you can't run the process and document it in a manual way, you should not be trying to automate it and hand it off to some AI or totally computerized system.
excellent. So as we close out, I would like you to share with our audience how your business supports other businesses with this framework and all of the things
Yeah.
that we talked about today. Whatever you think would be most valuable, I want my audience to hear about your services.
Awesome. Thanks. So we offer both advisory and consulting services around thinking about this framework and leading sort of the strategic change or design in your company, all the way down to doing these sort of technical implementations.
Okay.
And so we've got 3 types of team members: technical specialists, draftsmen who do all the documentation and process mapping, and then architects like me who come in to work with you to develop more of a strategic vision.
Okay.
You can reach out to us at thirdbrain.co. That's the number 3, rdbrain.co. And then I actually have a little white paper that goes over everything we talked about, as well as some more depth on like how we think about who to hire, that sort of thing, at digitalopsplaybook.com.
Excellent. We'll put all those links into the show notes as well. This has been incredibly insightful. I'm glad this was my first conversation about AI on the podcast, or in-depth conversation about AI on the podcast. Michael, thank you so much for sharing with us your work and your framework, and just your knowledge and expertise around, partnering and supporting business owners, meeting them where they're at, and helping them through this, laddered framework that we discussed today.
Excellent. Thank you, Amber.
I have loved having you listen to the Small Business Straight Talk podcast, and I sure hope you found my conversation with Michael to be valuable. Don't forget to head on over to view the show notes at amberdelagarza.com/361. Over there, you will find any links that we shared, as well as Michael's valuable framework. No change, no change. Without taking action, nothing will change for you or your business. So based on today's episode and conversation, what is an actionable that you can take in your business? How will this impact your own strategy or your focus on creating processes and SOPs, and understanding that you don't want to leapfrog steps to just focus on the new shiny object and technology, or that AI is all the rage, but really understanding that you need a solid business operation foundation, and then the technology can take it to the next level. So with that information, how will that impact the decisions you're making and what you're focusing on in your business? And before we close out, if you are looking to hire a business coach, one that will partner with you and help you learn to manage your time, increase your productivity, create time for what matters most, look at your business systems, processes, creating more efficiency, making decisions about your next hire or current team members, and ultimately partnering with you on strategic decisions that will take your business to the next level. If this is the support you're looking for in 2025, then I think we should talk. I invite you to head on over to amberdelagarza.com/call. Schedule a discovery call today so that we can discuss partnering together to help you get unstuck, reduce stress, and determine a clear path forward to increase profits. Again, head on over to amberdelagarza.com/call to schedule. If you are new here, I want to say welcome. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure you hit subscribe so you don't miss another episode. And if you have enjoyed today's episode, be sure to share it with a fellow business owner who you think would find it valuable. So that's my straight talk for today. Until next time, have a productive week.